Morning, all. All right, so we're starting things off today looking at the 1996 season. The season where Philadelphia was the kings of the East. Out west, of course, Detroit had an amazing season, and you'll notice that I did change the formatting a bit. Just it was getting to be kind of a pain for me to read it, and I thought if it's getting to be a pain for me to go through it, probably is for the viewer too. So in the Eastern Conference, the Philadelphia Flyers win it under coach Terry Murray. They finished 45, 24, and 13, 103 points, 282 goals scored, 208 goals against. So goal scoring is still dropping. The Pittsburgh Penguins, 49, 29, and 4 under coach Eddie Johnston, 102 points, 362 goals scored, 284 goals against. The New York Rangers that year are coached by Colin Campbell. They finished 41, 27, and 14, so 96 points, 272 goals scored, 237 goals against. The Florida Panthers, they make the playoffs, 41, 31, and 10 record, 92 points under coach Doug MacLean, 254 goals scored, 234 goals against. The Boston Bruins, they finish next, 91 points to finish fifth, 40, 31, and 11 record. 282 goals scored, 269 goals against. They're coached by Steve Casper. In Montreal, we see a coaching change that season, and big changes in Montreal. They finished 40, 32, and 10, so 90 points, 265 goals scored, 248 goals against. They start the season 0-4 under Jacques Demers. So they replace him with Mario Tremblay. Tremblay goes 40, 27, and 10. If you notice there's one loss that's missing, that's because Jacques Laperriere was the coach for one game. They lost that game. But Mario Tremblay becomes the coach, which leads to, we'll talk about it when we get there. The Washington Capitals next at 39, 32, and 11, so 89 points for them. 234 goals scored, 204 goals against. They're coached by Jim Schoenfeld. The Tampa Bay Lightning make the playoffs. Record of 38, 32, and 12, 88 points, 238 goals scored, 248 goals against. Terry Crisp, the coach there. Beneath the playoff line reside the New Jersey Devils. So they win the Cup in 95. They missed the playoffs in 96. A rarity, to be sure, but we see that a bit over this era. And I would think that, honestly, with a league now that has 32 teams, and it could be more than that, maybe we start seeing it more frequently. But New Jersey finishes 37, 33, and 12 under Jacques Lemaire. 86 points for them, 215 goals scored, 202 goals against. The Hartford Whalers, 34, 39, and 9 record, 237 goals scored, 259 goals against. 77 points under Paul Holmgren. They're 5, 6, and 1. And then Paul Maurice takes over, 29, 33, and 8 record under Paul Maurice. So we're starting to see some pretty familiar names on the board. The Buffalo Sabres finished 33, 42, and 7, 73 points under coach Ted Nolan, 247 goals scored, 262 goals against. Ted Nolan, a very popular coach with media and with fans, but he found himself at odds with management above him often enough that, his NHL coaching career far shorter than it should have been. The New York Islanders, yes, that is the fisherman logo, and it is that time. The Islanders finished 22, 50, and 10, 54 points, 229 goals scored, 315 goals against. Mike Milbury's the coach. So when we talk about the fish sticks and all that and the fun stuff with the fishermen, this is part of the reason why everybody hated that fisherman, because the Islanders completely bottomed out that year. The Ottawa Senators finished 18, 59, and 5, 41 points. They're just not progressing at that stage. 191 goals scored, 291 goals against. Under coach Rick Bowness, they go 6 and 13. Then under coach Dave Allison, they go 2, 22, and 1. And then Jacques Martin takes over and they go 10, 24, and 4 the rest of the way. So very rough season for Ottawa. It will get better, but at that point, it didn't look like it would. The West is won by the Detroit Red Wings, who easily finished first overall. 62, 13, and 7 record, 131 points, 325 goals scored, 181 goals against. Scotty Bowman is the coach. And again, during an era where the Red Wings are kind of mocked, this season really amped that up because they had 131 points, 62 wins. And you know how people treated Tampa after they lost in the first round in 2019? Yeah, Detroit was getting similar treatment even though they didn't get eliminated in the first round that year. Just, it didn't end the way they wanted it to. It did for Colorado, though. Their first year in Denver, and the Avs, pretty good team. 104 points under Mark Crawford. Record of 47, 25, and 10. 326 goals scored, 240 goals against. The Chicago Blackhawks, 40-28-14 record, 94 points, 273 goals scored, 220 goals against. They're now coached by Craig Hartsburg. The Toronto Maple Leafs finished 34-36-12 for 80 points, 247 goals scored, 252 goals against. And this is where I can point out the New Jersey Devils missed the playoffs here with 86 points. That would have put them fourth in the West. So there is an argument to be made that at this point things are a little bit lopsided. Pat Burns, they go 25-30-10 under Pat Burns. He's replaced by Nick Beverly, who goes 9-6-2 the rest of the way. The St. Louis Blues go 32-34-16 under coach Mike Keenan, so 80 points for them. 219 goals scored, 248 goals against. The Calgary Flames finished 34-37-11, 79 points under coach Pierre Pagé. 241 goals scored, 240 goals against. The Vancouver Canucks finished 32-35-15 for 79 points, 278 goals scored, 278 goals against. Under Rick Lee, they went 29-32-15, and Pat Quinn, they go 3-3 under him when he takes over from Rick Lee. I was very pessimistic of Rick Lee when he took over as head coach. Looking back, I think I was probably unfair to him because the Canucks team on the ice just wasn't very good anymore. This is why, and I've pointed this out before, usually when the Canucks have a really good run, it's not as long as people seem to remember it. 92 and 93, the Canucks were a playoff team and a favorite. 94, they really weren't, but they went on a run to the Stanley Cup final unexpectedly. And then after that, they just fade pretty quickly. And then we'll get into the late 2000s, early 2010s. And again, there's that period of time where the Canucks are pretty darn good. It just doesn't last that long. Winnipeg finishes above the playoff line, 36-40-6, 78 points under coach Terry Simpson. 275 goals scored, 291 goals against. And of course, this is the final season for the Winnipeg Jets in Winnipeg. Below the playoff line, and just barely below the playoff line, are the Anaheim Ducks, who finished 35-39-8. So they also have 78 points, 234 goals scored, 247 goals against. They're coached by Ron Wilson. The Edmonton Oilers finished 30-44-8 under coach Ron Lowe. 68 points, 240 goals scored, 304 goals against. The Dallas Stars, rough season for them in year 2 in Dallas. 26-42-14 record, so 66 points. 222 goals scored, 280 goals against. Under coach Bob Gainey, they go 11-19-9. He's replaced by Ken Hitchcock. 15-23-5 record for Ken Hitchcock. And of course, he would stick around with Dallas for a while, and they get a lot better. The LA Kings, under coach Larry Robinson, finished 24-40-18. They also have 66 points, 256 goals scored, 302 goals against. The San Jose Sharks, last place in the West with 47 points, so still ahead of Ottawa overall. 20-55-7 record, 252 goals scored, 357 goals against. Under Kevin Constantine, they start 3-18-4. He's out. Jim Wiley comes in and finishes 17-37-3 in relief. But it's going to be a while now before San Jose gets up to that contention status. But we'll see that when we get into the 2000s as well. So the Detroit Red Wings that year break the NHL's wins record, which had been set by a team coached by Scotty Bowman as well in the 70s in Montreal, where they had 60 wins. This one has 62. And yes, it is true. There was no overtime in the season where Montreal won 60 games, so they could have won more than that and likely would have. Mario Lemieux wins his 6th scoring title, and it's remarkable that he wins this scoring title with the back issues he's been going through and everything else that just seems to want to keep him out of the lineup. Just remarkable. July 27th of 1995, the Blues trade Brendan Shanahan to the Whalers for Chris Pronger. Pronger had a bit of a tough start with the Hartford Whalers, so there was some risk, I guess, to St. Louis picking up Pronger, but I think we knew Pronger was going to be pretty darn good. Shanahan, of course, a great goal scorer, Hall of Famer as well, but I'll give St. Louis the edge in that trade. August 31st of 1995, the Penguins trade Luc Robitaille, Ulf Samuelsson to the Rangers for Sergei Zubov and Peter Nedved. A trade which kind of ends up working out pretty well for the Pittsburgh Penguins in that Zubov, I'm not sure why the Rangers traded him, but hey, there we are. December 19th of 1995, the Flames trade Joe Nieuwendyk to Dallas for Corey Millen and Jerome Iginla. So Iginla, kind of an unknown at that point in time. Seen as a risk for Dallas, sure, but you're picking up Joe Nieuwendyk, who's been a captain with the Flames. He's a goal scorer, veteran, and he does end up helping Dallas quite a bit. but still, losing again like that, tough for Dallas. March 20th of 1996, widely considered one of the most lopsided trades of all time. The Pittsburgh Penguins trade, where is it? Right here. Marcus Naslund to the Canucks for Alex Stoyanov. So that's still a pretty lopsided trade. March 31st of 1996, Grant Fuhr starts his record 76th game in the net, and he had like a bunch of those in a row. He ends up with 79 on the season. I don't think we'll ever see a goaltender play 79 or more games again, but it's Mike Keenan. So a lot of those games he might have played only 2/3 of or half of, or he was quite quick to pull the goalie and switch him around. But Grant Fuhr started virtually every game that season. December 13th of 1995, Red Wings. Paul Coffey is the first defenseman to reach 1,000 assists in his career. So Paul Coffey reaches that milestone. December 6th of 1995, Montreal makes a big trade. So Mario Tremblay kind of embarrasses Patrick Roy, leaves him hanging out to dry in an embarrassing loss against Detroit. And so he lets everybody know, I'm not playing in Montreal anymore. So Montreal's forced to trade Patrick Roy, and they trade him to Colorado. And as I mentioned in the video yesterday, if they had stayed in Quebec and not moved to Colorado, there's no way Patrick Roy gets moved to the Quebec Nordiques. But in this trade, Patrick Roy and Mike Keane, who's a forgotten part of that trade, he was a key guy for Colorado after the trade. But they're traded to Colorado for Andrei Kovalenko, Martin Rusinski, and Jocelyn Thibault. Poor Thibault. I've always felt bad for him. I'm saying it again here. Having to replace Patrick Roy, not something anybody wants to be doing. February 7th of 1995, the Jets trade Teemu Selanne as well as Mark Chouinard and a 1996 fourth-round pick to the Ducks for Chad Kilger, Oleg Tverdovsky, and a 1996 third-round draft pick. It's a hockey trade in the sense that Winnipeg's trading a forward for a defenseman, and Tverdovsky's seen as being a potential top two defenseman for a long time to come. But it is still a trade that really favors the Ducks quite a bit. And for the Winnipeg Jets, who I'm trying to think, in February, I think we already knew that they were going to be moving. I know it was before the season was done, we knew the Winnipeg Jets were going to be moving, which has made the whole thing awkward. But yeah, the Selanne trade didn't really help things any in Winnipeg. And I mean, the team made the playoffs, and you're trading Selanne. Just to me, it seems kind of crazy. They almost lose that playoff spot against the team Selanne went to as well. So the Jets announced the move to Phoenix, as I stated, before the season was done. This was also the season where neutral site games were eliminated. So in 94-95, we had the lockout. When they got the season up and running 95-96, they just ditched the neutral zone games, or neutral site games. They have not returned. However, I would think that maybe we see those again at some point in the future. I think they were a good idea. I think neutral site games work. I think it tells you where the interest is in hockey. Do neutral site games for 3 or 4 years, and then it gives you a good idea of which markets are ready to support the National Hockey League. Just throwing that out there. I don't think they're ever going to do it again, but as a result of taking out the neutral site games, we get an 82-game season, and of course, it remains an 82-game season to this day. Sublimated third jerseys are brought in, so they've been used in the NBA and the CFL. The NHL's like, sure, we can use this new sublimation technology to create jerseys no one's ever seen before. So you get the Burger King, you get the Wild Wing jersey. The Wild Wing jersey was discontinued by Anaheim before the season's done. I think the Burger King was too by LA. You get Boston with the Paddington Bear, which surprisingly survived a lot of seasons. Vancouver, of course, with their red skate jersey, which I'm sorry, I still like it. And Pittsburgh, of course, with that black Robo Penguin. That jersey is fantastic. People still like it to this day, but most of them not well thought of. In fact, the New York Islanders, in their change of look, also uses that sublimation on the jerseys. So it doesn't go over all that well. I remember those jerseys not selling, seeing them in stores and going, those are ugly. And now I have all of them. So at any rate, the NHL starts its third jersey program, which starts off with some interesting decisions being made by design teams. So the Art Ross Trophy that year goes to Mario Lemieux. The Masterton goes to Gary Roberts of the Calgary Flames. And of course, Mario plays for Pittsburgh. We know this. The Calder goes to Daniel Alfredsson of Ottawa. So things are bad for Ottawa still. However, Alfredsson's in. Of course, this is after they've already drafted Alexander Daig, who, I mean, it didn't work out with Daig. The Conn Smythe Trophy goes to Joe Sakic of Colorado. The Selke Trophy goes to Sergei Fedorov of the Detroit Red Wings. The Hart Trophy goes to Mario Lemieux of Pittsburgh. The Jack Adams goes to Scotty Bowman of Detroit because 62 wins and all that. The Norris Trophy goes to Chris Chelios of Chicago. The King Clancy Award goes to Chris King of the Winnipeg Jets. The Lady Byng goes to Paul Correa of the Anaheim Ducks. The Lester Pearson Award goes to Mario Lemieux of the Pittsburgh Penguins. The Vezina goes to Jim Carrey of the Washington Capitals. That's right, the net detective is in there, and it's Jim Carrey's big season. I never thought Jim Carrey was that great. Like, it's weird because everybody got caught up in this Fury, and I remember thinking to myself, I don't know, I mean, he's okay, he's good, but I thought there was a lot of hype out there, and his career didn't last that long. The Jennings Trophy goes to Chris Osgood and Mike Vernon of Detroit. Two relatively underrated goaltenders. I say relatively because, of course, Vernon's in the Hall of Fame, but Osgood should be there too. So, to me, he's an underrated former goaltender for not being in the Hall. I at this point, between Osgood and Joseph, kind of 50-50 on which one I think it's more egregious is not in the Hall of Fame. So your league all-stars that year, Mario Lemieux of Pittsburgh is your first team all-star down the middle. Eric Lindros of Philadelphia, second team. On the left side, Paul Correa of Anaheim is first team, and John LeClaire of Philadelphia, second team. On the right side, Jaromir Jagr of Pittsburgh's first team, and Alexander McGillney of Vancouver is the second team all-star. So while Vancouver's got a lot of dysfunction going on, McGillney had himself quite a good year. On the blue line, Chris Chelios of Chicago and Ray Bourque of Boston are first team all-stars. Second team, Vlad Konstantinov in Detroit and Brian Leetch in New York, your second team all-stars. In net, Jim Carrey of Washington, first team all-star, and Chris Osgood of the Detroit Red Wings, your second team all-star. Now your leading scorer is, again, Mario Lemieux. 70 games, 69 goals, 92 assists, 161 points. So almost a goal per game. Jaromir Jagr, 82 games, 62 goals, 87 assists, 149 points. He's still in Pittsburgh at this stage as well. Joe Sakic of Colorado's third, 82 games, 51 goals, 69 assists, 120 points. Ron Francis of Pittsburgh, 77 games, 27 goals, 92 assists, 119 points for Ron Francis. Peter Forsberg, 82 games, 30 goals, 86 assists, 116 points. Eric Lindros in Philly, 73 games, 47 goals, 68 assists, 115 points. So Colorado's quite happy with Forsberg, but Philadelphia is pretty happy with Lindros at this stage of the game as well. Solani, split between Winnipeg and Anaheim, of course, 79 games, 40 goals, 68 assists, 108 points. McGillney, 79 games, 55 goals, 52 assists, 107 points for the Canucks. And Fedorov in Detroit, 78 games, 39 goals, 68 assists, 107 points. On top of being the Selke winner, Fedorov's fantastic in his own end. So we talk a lot about Datsuk and his two-way ability. Fedorov, I think, was the first that I looked at and said, kind of a complete player there. So the conference quarterfinals, St. Louis beats Toronto 4-2. Chicago sweeps Calgary 4-0. So Calgary's still having trouble getting out of the first round. Detroit beats Winnipeg 4-2, which is too bad because we know that's the end of it for Winnipeg, right? So they get a couple of wins against the 131-point team, but at the end of that series, we knew they were shuttering things in Winnipeg. The Jets would not return until 2011. The Vancouver Canucks, they lose against Colorado 4-2. A series that really wasn't in any kind of doubt there either. Florida beats Boston 4-1 and shocked everybody that Florida beat Boston. The expectation was, as Florida's first time in the playoffs, they're probably not going to get that far. Once they beat Boston, it definitely got some people's attention, this Boston fan included. The New York Rangers beat Montreal 4-2. Pittsburgh beats Washington 4-2, and Philadelphia beats Tampa Bay 4-2. So what's interesting with Montreal is that before Patrick Roy got traded, there were articles written, there were some in the press, and some fans who felt like Patrick Roy's best days were behind him, and maybe it was time to move on. But by the time that first round was done, Montreal's out. Colorado looks pretty good. The narrative has changed to, why would the Montreal Canadiens think of trading him? This was a terrible idea. The conference semifinals, Colorado beats Chicago 4-2. Detroit beats St. Louis, takes the full 7 games to do so. Pittsburgh beats the New York Rangers 4-1, and Florida beats Philadelphia 4-2. So Florida takes out Boston, a team that had been in the Cup final in 1990, and then they take out the Philadelphia Flyers, who were the number 1 seed in the East. Again, unexpected. Conference quarterfinals out west, Colorado and Detroit, the rivalry really starts here, and it heats up after this too. 3-2 win by Colorado in Detroit in the first game. They win in the second game in Detroit as well, 3-0. Detroit answers though. They win game 3 on the road, 6-4. Colorado then wins 4-2 at home to go up three games to 1. Detroit wins at home to stay alive in the series, 5-2, and then Colorado wins that sixth and final game of the series, 4-1, to knock out the Detroit Red Wings and to continue the narrative that Detroit can't get over the hump and they're never going to win a Stanley Cup again. Which of course we know is not true. Florida and Pittsburgh was one of the best series I've ever watched, and I really enjoyed it, even though Florida did play a trapping style of hockey. Obviously, I mean, Florida was a very lunchbox type of team. All the players very hardworking. No real mega star to talk about other than Van Beesbroek in net. But Florida wins the first game in Pittsburgh 5-1. Pittsburgh ties the series with a 3-2 win. Florida then gets the lead back in the series when they go home by a score of 5-2. Pittsburgh then wins in Florida 2-1 to tie the series again. Pittsburgh wins at home 3-0. They're up 3-2. They couldn't close it out. Florida wins at home 4-3, and then they go into Pittsburgh. They win game 7 3-1, and they knock out the Penguins, leading to a final between Colorado and Florida. Now, this is a series that was Colorado and Pittsburgh. You would have Mario Lemieux and the Penguins on one side, Joe Sakic and the Avs on the other, but nope, the lunchbox team got there. And this is where the rats hitting the ice became a thing, based on the whole Scott Mellenby killing a rat with his hockey stick and all that fun stuff. And just, and then the good luck that followed that. So it was a good luck story. But Colorado wins both games at home, 3-1 and 8-1 respectively. So we knew who was going to win the Cup final. It was just a matter of, can Florida win a game? Colorado wins 3-2 in game 3, and then in game 4 it goes to a third overtime. And I believe it was Uwe Krupp that scored in that third overtime to give Colorado a 1-0 win. So at least Florida had a good game 4, but they do lose in 4 straight games. In that final, Forsberg, 3 goals, 2 assists. Sakic with a goal and 4 assists. Adam Deadmarsh, 4 assists. Uwe Krupp, 2 goals and an assist. Rene Corbet, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points. Kamensky had a goal and 2 assists, 3 points for Valari. And Patrick Roy had a .974 save percentage in that final. It's pretty good. I checked it out. It's pretty good. On the other side, Jovanovski, which I spelled with a Y. No idea why. I know Jovanovski. There's no Y at the end. There's an I at the end. 2 assists for Jovanovski in that series. He's the leading scorer. And then Stu Barnes, Tom Fitzgerald, Ray Shepard, and Rob Niedermeyer, all of them had a goal. So those are your goal scorers in the series. That's 4 players in total. So 4 goals in 4 games. Van Beesbroek had a .908 save percentage. Fitzpatrick had a .789 save percentage in his appearance. But in the end, Colorado just wasn't going to be stopped that year. But it would have been entertaining to see, if Pittsburgh had played Colorado, would Pittsburgh have won a game or two? So question that's out there. But there you go. The 1995-96 season. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe in the event you've not done so already. Thank you guys so much for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.